I had worked the night shift at the same gas station for almost 2 years. It was the kind of place nobody stopped at unless they had to. One small building for fuel pumps, a broken vending machine, a restroom that smelled like bleach no matter how many times I cleaned it, and a highway stretching through the forest for miles in both directions. During the day, the station was busy enough. Truck drivers stopped for coffee. Families pulled in for fuel. People bought cigarettes, energy drinks, and things they didn't actually need. At night, it was completely different. After midnight, the road became almost empty. Sometimes I wouldn't see another car for 40 minutes, sometimes longer. That was why I liked the night shift. Nobody bothered me. I could sit behind the counter, drink coffee, listen to music, and wait for sunrise. The manager always told me the same thing before leaving. Lock the doors at 2. Don't let anyone inside after that. I never asked why, until one Tuesday night. It was 2:37 a.m. I was sitting behind the counter watching the security monitors when headlights appeared through the trees. At first, I thought it was a truck. The lights were low and strangely dim. Then the vehicle came into view. It was an old black sedan, really old. The paint was almost completely gone. The windows were dark, and there were no license plates. I immediately sat up. The car slowly entered the station. It didn't stop at the pumps. It drove directly toward pump 3, then stopped. I waited for the driver to get out. Nothing happened. 30 seconds passed. Nothing. I checked the security camera. The driver's seat was empty. I frowned. Maybe the driver had gotten out while I wasn't looking. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the window. The car was completely dark. No engine noise. No headlights. No movement. I stood several feet away. Hello. No response. I walked closer. The driver's window was slightly open. I shined my flashlight inside. The seat was empty. The passenger seat was empty. The back seats were empty. There was nobody inside. I stepped back. Then I heard a click. The fuel cap opened. I froze. The black sedan's fuel door had opened by itself. Then the pump screen turned on. Insert card. I stared at it. No. I walked toward the pump. There was no one there. The station was completely empty. The pump suddenly beeped. Card accepted. I hadn't touched it. The numbers on the screen changed. Fueling. The pump started running. I could hear gasoline flowing. But the nozzle wasn't inside the car. It was still hanging on the pump. I slowly backed away. The pump continued counting. 1 gallon. 2 gallons. 3 gallons. Then 10. Then 20. The numbers kept climbing. The black sedan remained completely still. I ran back inside and locked the front door. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course. Because apparently the universe enjoys timing its nonsense for maximum inconvenience. I checked the cameras again. The car was still at pump 3. But something had changed. The driver's seat wasn't empty anymore. Someone was sitting there. I zoomed in. I couldn't see the face, only a dark silhouette. The figure was completely motionless. I watched the screen. Then it slowly raised its head and looked directly at the camera. The monitor flickered. For 1 second, I saw its face. It was mine. Exactly mine. Same eyes. Same hair. Same scar above my eyebrow. Then the screen went black. The pump stopped. The station became silent. I looked at the clock. 2:49 a.m. Then the printer beside the register started running. Paper came out. I walked toward it. A receipt. I picked it up. At the top was the station's name. Underneath, fuel, 43.7 gallons. Then, customer, my name. I stopped breathing. At the bottom of the receipt was one final line. Destination, home. And underneath it, arrival, 3:17 a.m. I read the receipt again. Then again. My hands were shaking so badly that the paper kept folding between my fingers. Customer, my name. Destination, home. Arrival, 3:17 a.m. I looked at the clock. 2:50. 27 minutes. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Someone had access to the station computer. Someone had hacked the pump. Maybe the security camera had been altered. Maybe the receipt printer was malfunctioning. Humans are very good at inventing reasonable explanations when the alternative is admitting that reality has become completely ridiculous. I turned toward the security monitors. The black sedan was still parked at pump 3. The driver's seat was empty again. I stared at the screen. Nothing moved. I picked up the station phone and called my manager. The phone rang once, twice. Then someone answered. Hello. It was my manager's voice. I immediately relaxed. Where are you? There was a pause. Where do you think I am? Home. Another pause. No. His voice sounded strange. I frowned. Are you okay? He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, Did it arrive? My stomach tightened. What? The car. I looked toward pump 3. How do you know about the car? He whispered. Because it came for me too. The line went silent. Wait. I pressed the phone against my ear. You're still there? Nothing. Then the manager's voice returned. But it wasn't coming through the phone anymore. It was coming from somewhere inside the station. Don't let it leave. I slowly lowered the receiver. The voice continued through the ceiling speakers. Whatever happens, don't let it leave the property. I looked toward the entrance. The black sedan's engine suddenly started. The sound echoed through the empty station. I froze. The headlights switched on. The car began moving. Slowly, it rolled away from pump 3. I watched it through the front window. It wasn't driving toward the highway. It was driving directly toward the store. I stepped backward. The sedan stopped a few feet from the glass doors. The engine continued running. The headlights were shining directly into my eyes. I couldn't see the driver. I grabbed the flashlight and walked toward the window. The car's windshield was completely covered in condensation. Then, something moved behind the glass. A hand appeared. It slowly wiped away a small circle of fog. I saw an eye staring through it. My eye. I stepped backward. The hand disappeared. The car's horn sounded once, then twice, then 3 times. I looked at the clock. 2:57 a.m. 7 minutes had passed. The receipt was still in my hand. Suddenly, another piece of paper began coming from the printer. I didn't want to look. I already knew what it would say, but I walked toward it anyway. The paper came out slowly, one line at a time. Route calculated. Then, start, Blackwood gas station. Then, destination, home. Then, distance, 43.7 miles. I stared at the number. 43.7 miles. That was almost exactly the distance between the station and my house. Then another line appeared. Estimated travel time, 20 minutes. I looked at the clock. 2:58. 20 minutes. 3:18. Almost exactly the time printed on the receipt. But the receipt said, arrival, 3:17 a.m. I felt cold sweat running down my back. The printer continued. One final line appeared. Passenger, 1. I looked toward the car. The driver's door opened. Nobody stepped out. It simply opened, then closed. I backed away from the window. The sedan's headlights switched off. The station was dark again. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the front door handle moved. Once, twice. Someone was trying to open it from outside. I stared at the locked door. The handle stopped. A shadow appeared beneath it. Someone was standing outside. I could see 2 feet through the gap beneath the door. They weren't moving. I reached for the emergency button underneath the counter. Before I could press it, a voice spoke through the glass. My voice. Open the door. I didn't move. The voice came again. You're late. I stepped backward. The shadow beneath the door disappeared. Then the car engine roared. The black sedan suddenly accelerated. It drove away from the store and disappeared onto the highway. I watched its taillights vanish between the trees. For the first time that night, I felt relief. I grabbed my phone. Still no signal. Then I noticed something on the security monitor. Camera 4. The highway. The black sedan was driving away. I watched it disappear around the bend. Then the camera switched automatically. A second vehicle appeared. Another black sedan. Same model. Same color. Same missing license plates. It was driving toward the station. I zoomed in. The car stopped beside the road. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. I couldn't see his face. He stood in the middle of the highway. Then he turned toward the camera. Even though the camera was hundreds of feet away, I knew exactly who it was. Me. He raised one hand and pointed directly toward the gas station. The camera suddenly went black. Every monitor followed, one by one. Black, black, black. Then the station printer started again. I slowly walked toward it. A new receipt came out. This time there were only 2 lines. Customer, my name. Arrival, 3:17 a.m. I looked at the clock. 3:02 a.m. 15 minutes remained. Then I heard tires on the pavement outside. Not one car. Several. I looked through the window. There were black sedans everywhere. One at pump 1. One at pump 2. One at pump 3. One at pump 4. And more were arriving from the highway. Every single one had no license plates. Every single one was completely identical. The engines all switched off at the same time. Then every driver's door opened, and every car was empty. The 4 black sedans remained parked beneath the station lights. Their doors were open. Their interiors were completely dark. I stood behind the counter, staring through the glass. I counted them again. 4 cars. 4 pumps. But then another pair of headlights appeared on the highway. Slowly, a 5th black sedan turned into the station. It stopped at the only empty space beside the building. The driver's door opened. Nobody got out. Then another car arrived. Then another. Within minutes, the parking lot was filled with identical black sedans. None had license plates. None had visible drivers. And every single one had its driver's door hanging open. I reached for the phone again. This time, there was a dial tone. I immediately called emergency services. The line connected. A woman answered. Emergency services. I nearly shouted. I need help. Where are you? Blackwood Gas Station, Highway 17. There was silence. Then the operator asked, What time is it? I looked at the clock. 3:04 a.m. 3:04. Her voice became quieter. Are you alone? I looked toward the parking lot. Yes. Another pause. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. No. I frowned. What? You aren't alone. I heard something in the background on her end. A faint sound, like a phone ringing. Then she whispered, Do not look behind you. I froze. My eyes slowly moved toward the reflection in the glass behind the counter. At first, nothing. Then I saw someone standing near the coffee machine. A man, wearing my uniform, facing away from me. I turned around. The coffee machine was empty. I looked back at the glass. He was still there. The operator spoke again. Can you see him? I couldn't answer. The figure in the reflection slowly turned his head. I saw his face. It was mine, but older, much older. Gray hair, sunken eyes, deep lines across his face. He looked like he had aged 50 years. He stared directly at me through the reflection. Then he raised one finger to his lips. The emergency operator whispered, Listen carefully. The cars aren't here for you. I swallowed. Then why are they here? Because they're waiting. For what? The operator didn't answer. Instead, I heard a vehicle engine start. Then another. Then another. Outside, all the black sedans began turning their headlights on. One by one, the beams pointed toward the highway. Every car was facing the same direction. I watched in confusion. Then headlights appeared in the distance. A convoy. Dozens of black sedans were driving toward the station. The operator said, "Whatever happens, do not let the cars reach your house." My heart stopped. My house? She said nothing. How do you know where I live? The line went dead. I stared at the phone. Then the receipt printer started. Paper began sliding out. Slowly, I walked toward it. A single line appeared. Route updated. Another line. Destination, home. Then, passengers, 14. I looked outside. The parking lot was empty. Every black sedan was gone. I rushed to the window. The highway was empty too. No cars. No headlights. Nothing. I checked the clock. 3:08 a.m. 9 minutes until the predicted arrival. Then I heard a noise from inside the store. A quiet mechanical sound. Beep, beep, beep. I turned toward the fuel pumps. Pump 3 had activated. The display showed. Payment accepted. I hadn't touched it. Then the pump began dispensing fuel. But there was no car. The hose lifted off its holder by itself. The nozzle moved through the air. Slowly, it pointed toward the road. Then the hose began stretching. Further, further, until it reached the front doors. The nozzle stopped directly in front of me. I backed away. The pump screen changed. Fueling vehicle. I looked outside. Nothing was there. Then I heard tires. Not outside. Underneath me. The entire floor vibrated. The lights flickered. A deep engine sound rose from beneath the station. I stepped backward. The concrete floor beneath pump 3 cracked. A thin black line spread across the pavement. Then another. Then another. The cracks formed a shape. A road. A perfect miniature highway appeared beneath the station. And on that tiny road, a black sedan was driving. It was impossibly small, but I could see the driver. Me. The miniature car drove toward a tiny house at the end of the road. My house. I stared in horror. The little car stopped in front of it. Its headlights turned on. Then the tiny version of me stepped out. He looked up, directly at me, and raised his hand. Behind him, my front door opened. I heard a phone ringing somewhere in the station. I slowly turned toward the counter. The phone was ringing. I didn't want to answer, but I already knew who would be calling. The screen displayed a number. My home number. I picked up. My mother's voice whispered, "Why are you still at work?" I couldn't speak. She continued, "There are cars outside." I looked at the clock. 3:12 a.m. 5 minutes remained. Then my mother screamed. The line went dead, and every black sedan in the parking lot appeared again at once. This time, they were all facing the station. Every driver's door opened, and from every empty vehicle, a voice came through. My voice. All together. We're here to take you home. The voices came from every direction. We're here to take you home. I stood completely still. Outside, every black sedan had its headlights pointed toward the station. There must have been 20 of them now. Maybe more. I couldn't count anymore. Their doors were open. Their interiors were empty. But voices continued coming from inside them. My voice. All of them. We're here to take you home. I backed away from the window. No. The voices stopped. Every engine started simultaneously. The sound shook the entire building. Then the cars began moving. Not toward the highway. Toward the station. I ran behind the counter. The first sedan smashed through the glass doors. The impact sent shards across the floor. The car stopped inches from the counter. Its headlights remained on. I crouched behind the register. Another sedan crashed through the front windows. Then another. The station filled with smoke and the smell of gasoline. I crawled toward the employee room. The door was locked. I pulled the handle. Nothing. Behind me, a car engine revved. I turned. The first sedan was slowly moving toward me. There was nobody behind the wheel. I ran. The car accelerated. I reached the employee room and slammed myself against the door. The sedan crashed into it. The entire wall shook. I grabbed the emergency fire extinguisher and smashed the lock. The door opened. I threw myself inside. The car stopped. Silence. I locked the door. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the employee room phone rang. I stared at it. It was an old landline. We hadn't used it in years. It rang again. I didn't answer. The ringing continued. Finally, I picked it up. Hello. A man's voice answered. My voice. But older. Much older. You have 5 minutes. Until what? Until 3:17. What happens at 3:17? Silence. Then, the station leaves. I frowned. What does that mean? The station disappears. Where? Home. I felt my stomach drop. You mean my house? Not yours. Whose? He whispered. Mine. The line went dead. I looked at the clock. 3:13 a.m. For minutes, I searched the employee room for anything that could help. Old paperwork, maintenance manuals, a first aid kit. Then I found a metal filing cabinet. The top drawer was unlocked. Inside were hundreds of old incident reports. I grabbed the first one. Blackwood Gas Station. Night shift incident. Date: May 14th, 1996. I opened it. The report described a black sedan arriving at 3:17 a.m. No driver. No plates. The night clerk disappeared. The station was found empty the next morning. I grabbed another report. 1999. Same thing. Another. 2003. Another. 2008. 2009. 2010. Every few years. The exact same incident. Black car. 3:17 a.m. Night clerk missing. But the final report was different. It was dated only 3 months ago. I read the first line. Employee survived. My heart began pounding. I read further. The employee had discovered that the cars weren't trying to enter the station. They were trying to leave it. The station itself was the thing trapping the employee. The cars were simply the exits. I kept reading. Do not enter the vehicle. Wait until 3:17. When the clock changes, the car with no headlights will open its door. Enter that car. I looked at the clock. 3:15. 2 minutes. The report continued. Do not look at the driver. Do not speak to the driver. Do not ask where you are going. When the car stops, get out without looking back. At the bottom, one final sentence. If the car has your face behind the wheel, close the door and wait for another one. I dropped the report. Outside the employee room, footsteps approached. Slow. Heavy. I looked under the door. 2 shoes stopped directly outside. I recognized them. They were my shoes. The person outside knocked. Knock. 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 Then my voice whispered, Open the door. I backed away. Please. The voice became softer. You don't want to miss your ride. I looked at the clock. 3:16 a.m. 1 minute. The footsteps disappeared. Then every sound in the station stopped. No engines. No alarms. No wind. Nothing. The clock ticked. 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 30 seconds. I held my breath. 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 45 seconds. The second hand moved. 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 55 seconds. Then, 3:17 a.m. Every light in the station went out. Complete darkness. A single car engine started outside. I opened the employee room door. The station was empty. No crashed cars. No broken glass. No smoke. Everything looked exactly as it had before, except for one black sedan parked at pump 4. Its headlights were off. The driver's door was open. I remembered the report. I walked toward it. Slowly. Every step echoed through the empty station. I reached the car. The interior was completely dark. I opened the passenger door. Then I heard breathing from the driver's seat. Slow, calm, human. I remembered the warning. Do not look at the driver. I climbed inside. The driver's door closed by itself. The engine started. The car began moving. I kept my eyes fixed straight ahead. The driver didn't speak. Neither did I. The station disappeared behind us. The road outside was completely dark. There were no street lights, no buildings, no other cars, only trees, endless trees. After several minutes, the driver finally spoke. In my voice, almost home. I clenched my fists. I didn't answer. The driver laughed quietly, then whispered, "You should have checked which way we were going." I looked through the windshield. My blood froze. We weren't driving toward my home. We were driving deeper into the forest. And ahead, I could see hundreds of black sedans parked between the trees. Every single one was facing us. Every single driver's door was open. The driver didn't answer. He kept his eyes on the road. I stared through the windshield at the hundreds of black sedans scattered between the trees. Every single one had its driver's door open. Every single car was facing us. "Who are they?" I whispered. The driver finally spoke. "They aren't people." "Then what are they?" He tightened his hands around the steering wheel. "They're copies." "Copies of what?" He looked at me. "People who try to go home." My stomach tightened. "What happens to them?" "They become part of the road." The car slowly moved forward. As we passed the first row of black sedans, I noticed something inside one of them. A photograph. It was sitting on the dashboard. I couldn't see it clearly. Then the headlights from another car illuminated the interior. The photograph showed a family. A father, a mother, a little boy, and standing beside them was me. I turned away immediately. The driver noticed. "Don't look at the photographs." "Why?" "Because they remember you." The road became narrower. Trees pressed against both sides of the car. The headlights barely reached 10 meters ahead. Then the radio turned on. Static. The driver reached for it. Before he could switch it off, a voice came through. My mother's voice. "Ethan." I froze. The driver didn't react. The voice continued. "Where are you?" I slowly reached toward the radio. The driver grabbed my wrist. "Don't answer." "But that's my mother." "No." The voice became louder. "Ethan, please. I know you're there." Tears filled my eyes. The driver shook his head. "She's not calling you." "Then who is?" He whispered. "The road." The radio suddenly went silent. The car continued forward. Then my phone began vibrating. I pulled it from my pocket. No signal, but there was a message. From my mother. "Come home." Another message appeared. "I can see you." Then another. "Turn around." I looked at the driver. He saw the messages. His face went pale. "Whatever happens, don't turn around." Something slammed against the back of the car. The entire vehicle jumped. I heard fingernails scratching across the rear window. Slowly, from one side to the other. Then a face appeared in the glass. My face. Older. Pale. Smiling. It pressed its forehead against the window. The driver accelerated. The thing disappeared into the darkness. Then another face appeared. Then another. Soon the entire rear window was covered with them. All of them were me. Different ages. Different expressions. Some were crying. Some were smiling. Some were screaming silently. The driver kept driving. How much longer? He didn't answer. I looked at the dashboard clock. 3:11 a.m. 6 minutes until 3:17. Then the road suddenly split into two directions. The driver slowed down. Left. Right. Both roads looked identical. He stared at them. Which way? I looked at the GPS. The screen showed only one destination. Home. Then the arrow pointed left. The driver shook his head. No. Why? Because it knows you want to go home. The GPS arrow suddenly moved. Now it pointed right. The driver stared at it. Then the screen displayed a new message. He's waiting. The driver whispered. That's the road I took. What? 20 years ago. I stared at him. You've been here before? He nodded. I was the night clerk. I felt cold. The gas station? Yes. What happened to you? He looked at me. I escaped. Then why are you still here? He smiled sadly. Because nobody really escapes. The car turned right. The road became completely dark. At 3:14 a.m., the headlights went out. The driver cursed. He hit the switch again. Nothing. The engine continued running. But we were driving without headlights. Then something appeared in the distance. A house. My house. Exactly as it looked from the road. The porch light was on. My mother stood outside, waiting. I almost cried with relief. We made it. The driver slammed the brakes. No. That's my house. No. He pointed toward the porch. My mother was standing there. But there was something wrong. She wasn't looking at us. She was looking at the driver. Then she slowly raised her hand and pointed toward me. The driver whispered, That's not your mother. The porch light flickered. The house changed. The windows became black. The walls became old. The front door stretched unnaturally tall, and the number above it changed. 0. I looked at the clock. 3:16 a.m. The driver turned toward me. Whatever happens next, don't get out. The car stopped. The house door opened. Someone stepped outside. It was me, wearing my work uniform, holding the same flashlight I had left at the gas station. He smiled, then looked directly at me, and said, You're late. The clock changed. 3:17 a.m. The clock changed. 3:17 a.m. The moment it did, everything stopped. The engine died. The trees stopped moving. Even the wind disappeared. The house in front of us remained completely silent. My double stood on the porch. He was still smiling. The driver whispered, Don't look at him. I couldn't stop staring. My double slowly raised his flashlight. The beam pointed directly at our car. Then he spoke. Open the door. I didn't move. He smiled wider. You know you want to go home. The driver locked the doors. My double walked down the porch steps. One step, then another. He crossed the road toward us. I watched his reflection appear in the windshield. He stopped directly in front of the car. Then he leaned closer. His face was almost touching the glass. He looked exactly like me, but something was wrong with his eyes. They were completely black. He whispered, You've been gone a long time. I shook my head. I've only been working one night. My double smiled. That's what everyone says. The driver suddenly started the engine. The car wouldn't move. He tried again. Nothing. My double placed one hand on the hood. The metal began slowly sinking beneath his fingers. The driver looked terrified. Don't speak to him. My double turned toward him. You remember me. The driver said nothing. You left me here. The driver's face went pale. My double smiled. And you came back with another one. I looked at the driver. What is he talking about? The driver finally whispered. 20 years ago, I made it to this house. He stared at my double. I saw myself standing outside. I thought I had escaped, but I got out of the car. My double laughed, and that's when I took his place. The driver grabbed the steering wheel. Keep your eyes closed. I shut them. Immediately, something hit the windshield. Then again. The glass began cracking. My double was pounding on it. Open your eyes. I kept them closed. Look at me. I didn't. Then he started using my mother's voice. Ethan, please. I'm scared. I covered my ears. The voice changed. My father's. Then my sister's. Then the manager's. Then the driver beside me. Finally, my own voice. Open your eyes. The windshield cracked completely. I heard glass falling. Cold air rushed into the car, but I kept my eyes closed. The driver whispered, "Don't move." Something climbed onto the hood. I heard footsteps on the roof. Then silence. A few seconds later, the driver said, "Now." I opened my eyes. The house was gone. The forest was gone. We were back on the highway. Morning sunlight was appearing beyond the trees. I looked at the dashboard. 6:02 a.m. The driver was gone. I was alone in the car. The vehicle slowly rolled to a stop beside a familiar road sign. Blackwood Gas Station, 2 miles. I looked in the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. Then I noticed something sitting beside me. A receipt. I picked it up. There was only one line printed on it. Passenger, 0. I looked toward the gas station. It was completely normal. No black cars. No broken windows. No strange lights. I thought it was finally over. Then I noticed the time on the receipt. 3:17 a.m. Not today's date. Tomorrow's. I looked at the road behind me. A black sedan was approaching. No license plate. Its headlights were off. It slowly passed my car, then stopped. The driver's window rolled down. Nobody was inside, but a voice came from the empty driver's seat. My voice. Your shift isn't over. The sedan's passenger door opened. Waiting. I didn't get out of the car. I stared at the open passenger door of the black sedan. The engine was still running, but there was nobody behind the wheel. My own voice came from inside. Your shift isn't over. I locked my doors. The voice laughed. Then the black sedan slowly pulled away. I watched it disappear around the bend. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Blackwood gas station. I answered. Static. Then my manager whispered, Where are you? On the highway. Get back here. Why? He was silent for a moment. Because the station has been empty for 6 hours. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I've been watching the cameras. There hasn't been a single employee inside. I looked at my hands. I was still wearing my uniform. My manager continued. The police came an hour ago. They found your car. My car. At the station. I looked toward the road. My car was still running. He whispered, Come back. I turned around. The gas station was behind me, 2 miles away. I drove back. When I arrived, the parking lot was empty. The station lights were off. The front door was locked. I looked through the window. Someone was sitting behind the counter. Me. I stepped backward. The figure behind the glass slowly raised its head, then smiled. My phone rang again. I answered. My manager said, Don't go inside. I stared at my double. Why? Because I'm looking at the camera. What do you see? He whispered. You're standing outside. I looked at the security camera above the entrance, then back at the figure behind the counter. My double stood up. He walked toward the glass, then stopped. He raised one hand and pointed behind me. I slowly turned around. There was another black sedan parked behind my car. Its passenger door was open. Inside, someone was waiting. The manager shouted through the phone, Run! I did. I sprinted toward the highway. Behind me, I heard multiple engines starting. The black sedans were coming. All of them. I didn't look back. I just ran. Then headlights appeared ahead. A police car stopped beside me. An officer jumped out. Get inside. I climbed into the back seat. The officer locked the doors. Are you Ethan? I nodded. He looked at me through the mirror. You need to tell me what happened. I tried. But before I could speak, the radio crackled. A dispatcher said, Unit 14, return to Blackwood gas station. The officer frowned. Why? The dispatcher replied, We have a missing employee. The officer looked at me. Who? The dispatcher answered. Ethan Brooks. My blood went cold. The officer slowly looked at me in the mirror, then at the police radio, then back at me. He whispered, That's you. The radio crackled again. Unit 14. Do not bring him home. The officer's face changed. He reached for the door lock. I grabbed his shoulder. Don't. He looked at me. His eyes were completely black. Then he smiled and started driving toward the gas station. The officer drove without saying a word. I watched the road through the windshield. Every few seconds, I checked the side mirror. Nothing. Then the radio turned on. Unit 14. The dispatcher sounded different now. He's not the one. The officer frowned. Repeat. He's not the one. The radio went silent. The officer looked at me. Who are you? Ethan. He shook his head. No. He pointed toward the mirror. I looked. There was another person sitting in the back seat. Between us. Me. He was wearing the same uniform. His face was pale. His eyes were closed. I screamed. The officer slammed the brakes. The other me opened his eyes. He smiled, then whispered, "Found you." The police car's lights went out. The engine died. Outside, dozens of black sedans appeared on the highway. They surrounded us. Every door opened. Nobody stepped out. Then the officer unlocked the back door. I grabbed the handle. It wouldn't open. The other me leaned closer. "You keep trying to go home, but you don't understand. This is home." He pointed toward the road. The gas station appeared in the distance. Except it wasn't the gas station anymore. It looked enormous. Hundreds of fuel pumps stretched into the darkness. Thousands of black cars waited between them, and above the building, a huge sign glowed red. Blackwood Gas Station. Underneath it, open 24 hours. The officer whispered, "It's been waiting for you." The doors of the police car suddenly unlocked. I jumped out. The other me followed. I ran toward the forest. Behind me, footsteps followed. I didn't turn around. Then I heard my manager's voice. "Keep running." I stopped. The voice came from the trees. I looked around. My manager stepped out from behind a tree. He was holding an old flashlight. "You're almost there." "Almost where?" He pointed toward a small building hidden between the trees. It was an old gas station, much older than Blackwood. The sign was broken. The windows were covered with dust. I followed him inside. There was a single counter, a single fuel pump, and an old receipt printer. He looked at me. "This is where it started." I stared at the pump. "Why?" He handed me a photograph. It showed a man standing beside the station. The date was written underneath. 1968. The man looked exactly like me. My manager whispered, "Every 40 years, it chooses someone." "Then why me?" "Because you were already chosen." The printer suddenly activated. A receipt slowly emerged. I took it. Only one sentence was printed. "Shift transfer ready." My manager stepped backward. No. The lights flickered. A black sedan appeared outside. Then another. Then dozens. The old station doors locked. My manager looked terrified. He whispered, "Whatever happens, do not accept the keys." A set of car keys suddenly appeared on the counter. They were wet, covered in seawater, and attached to them was a small metal tag. Car 0. The engine of the nearest black sedan started. Then every other engine followed. My manager closed his eyes. "It's here." The front door slowly opened. Someone stepped inside. I recognized him immediately. It was the driver from the forest. Except now, he was smiling, and behind him stood hundreds of copies of me, all wearing the same uniform, all waiting for the same thing. The driver placed one hand on the counter, then said, "Your shift ends when someone takes your place." He looked at the keys. "And tonight, we finally found one."
The keys were still lying on the counter. Car 0. I stared at them. The driver stood across from me. Behind him, hundreds of copies watched in silence. My manager whispered, "Don't take them." The driver smiled. "You've been running all night. You're tired. You want to go home." I looked at the keys. For a second, I wanted to grab them. Then I noticed something. There was a tiny photograph attached to the keychain. It showed my house, but someone was standing outside the front door. My mother. I grabbed the photograph. The driver stopped smiling. "Where did you get that?" I turned it over. On the back was an address. Not my home. The old gas station. I suddenly understood. The cars weren't taking me home. They were taking something from my home. I looked at my manager. "What happens if I don't take the keys?" He whispered. "Then it takes someone else." "Who?" He looked toward the window. My mother was standing outside. I froze. She was staring directly at me. The driver laughed. "She's already chosen." My manager grabbed my arm. "Don't believe it." The woman outside slowly raised her hand. She held another set of keys. Car 0. Then she opened the door. A black sedan waited behind her. I realized what was happening. The thing wasn't trying to replace me. It was trying to make me choose who would replace me. The driver stepped closer. "Take the keys." "No." "Then she'll take them." My mother stepped into the car. I ran toward the door. The driver grabbed me. I fought him. Behind us, every copy of me began moving. They surrounded the counter. I looked at the receipt printer. It suddenly turned on. A long receipt appeared. I pulled it from the machine. There was only one line. Customer, mother. Then, destination, home. Then, arrival, 3:17 a.m. I looked at the clock. 3:16. 1 minute. The driver whispered, "Choose." I looked at my mother. Then the keys. Then the hundreds of copies. I understood. The only way to break the cycle wasn't to escape. It was to refuse to choose. I grabbed the keys. The driver smiled. But instead of getting into the car, I threw them into the fuel pump. The driver screamed. Every copy screamed with him. The pump exploded in a burst of white light. The black sedans outside all started their engines. Then every single one drove toward the old station. The building shook. The walls cracked. My manager shouted, "Run!" We ran through the back door. Behind us, the entire station collapsed into darkness. When I turned around, there was nothing. No station. No cars. No copies. Only an empty stretch of forest. My mother was gone. So was my manager. I was alone. Then I heard an engine. One black sedan slowly rolled out of the trees. It stopped beside me. The driver's window lowered. Nobody was inside. But my mother's voice came from the empty seat. "Ethan, Come home." The passenger door opened. I looked at the clock. 3:17 a.m. And this time, I heard another voice behind me. My own. "Don't get in." I turned around. My double was standing in the darkness. But he wasn't smiling anymore. He looked terrified. He whispered, "Because if you do, I won't be able to stop you from becoming me." My double stood in the darkness. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked terrified. "Don't get in," he whispered. The black sedan waited beside me. Its passenger door remained open. My mother's voice came from inside. "Ethan, please come home." I took one step toward the car. My double shook his head. "That's not your mother." "Then where is she?" He looked down. "I don't know." The car engine suddenly started. The headlights came on. My double stepped backward. "You have to finish it." "How?" He pointed toward the gas station. It was back, standing between the trees. Lights glowing. Pumps running. The sign flickering. Blackwood Gas Station. I looked at the clock. 3:17 a.m. The front door opened. My manager walked outside. He held a single piece of paper. "There's only one way." I followed him inside. The station was empty. No cars. No copies. No voices. He placed the paper on the counter. It was an employee resignation form. At the bottom was one question. "Who will take your shift?" I picked up the pen. My manager watched me. I crossed out the question. Then I wrote, "No one." The lights went out. Every fuel pump stopped. The black sedan outside disappeared. The printer began screaming as paper poured from it. Receipts covered the floor. Thousands of them. Every receipt showed a different name. Every name belonged to someone who had worked here. Then the last receipt appeared. I picked it up. There was only one line. "Shift terminated." The station became silent. The clock changed. 3:18 a.m. For the first time. Nothing happened. The manager smiled. "You're free." I looked toward the front doors. Morning light was beginning to appear beyond the trees. I walked outside. The highway was normal. Cars passed. Birds were singing. The forest looked completely ordinary. I turned around. The gas station was gone. Just an empty concrete foundation remained. My manager stood beside me. Then I realized something. He was crying. I asked him why. He looked at the empty foundation. "Because I've been waiting for someone to do that for 30 years. Then he disappeared. I never saw him again. The police eventually found me several miles away. They told me I had been missing for 12 hours. I told them everything. They didn't believe me. I didn't blame them. I probably wouldn't have believed me either. I went home. My mother was alive. She remembered nothing. The black sedan was never found. The old gas station wasn't on any map. Blackwood gas station had apparently been abandoned 27 years earlier. There was one strange thing. When I checked my phone, I had one new photograph. It showed the gas station at night. Hundreds of black cars surrounded it. And standing in the middle of the parking lot was me. I deleted the photograph. Then I deleted everything else. I quit my job. I never worked another night shift. For months, everything was normal. Until last night. I woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m. My phone was ringing. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I heard my own voice coming from the speaker before I even answered. Don't pick up. I froze. The phone stopped ringing. A message appeared. Shift available. Then another. Location. Blackwood gas station. Then. Applicants. 1. I stared at the screen. My hands began shaking. A final message appeared. Applicant. You. I threw the phone across the room. It landed against the wall. The screen cracked. But the message remained. Then I heard an engine outside. Slowly. A pair of headlights appeared through my bedroom window. A black sedan was parked across the street. No license plates. No driver. The passenger door opened. I heard a voice from outside. My mother's voice. Ethan, your shift starts soon. I closed the curtains. Then I heard knocking. 3 times. Knock. 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 I didn't move. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then my own voice whispered from the other side of the bedroom door. Good job ending the shift. A pause. But you forgot one thing. I stared at the door. What? The voice answered. Someone still has to work. The lights went out. And somewhere outside, a gas pump beeped. Payment accepted.